All right. Hi, Courtney. Hi, Jim. Thank you guys for coming in today. I appreciate you taking the time. I know there's a lot going on your plate right now, especially with spring football wrapping up. So, would love to just hear how things are going in your life, and would love to just hear how you feel about the football team this year. Great. So, you think it's going to be a pretty good year then? Well, that's great to hear. I can tell you that you definitely have all of our support here at the firm, and we couldn't be more excited for this season. Great. Well, I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but did love just catching up with you today. So I know we don't have that much time. I had allotted about 20 minutes for this meeting because I know you have to get to a recruiting event. So does 20 minutes still work for you guys? Okay, perfect. So we have been hard at work at the financial plans that we actually have bound in front of you today. So we don't want this to be super daunting for you guys. I know looking at a plan that thick can sometimes be overwhelming to a client, but we just wanted to make sure that you guys knew the reasoning for the recommendations that we are actually going to be covering today. And so if you read through that, it will actually explain everything that has to do with your options of what you can actually choose to go through with in these certain areas of planning and what is actually out there, and why we actually are making the recommendations that we are making. So we were really excited to show that to you guys, but I guess before we get started today, really just wanted to set an agenda of what we would cover. So there's 4 areas that we wanted to cover today. First, I just wanted to recap the goals from our last meeting and from the last few meetings that we have for you guys, because we want to make sure that we're on the same page there. The second part was actually the investment allocation side of things. So where the assets are now and any recommendations that we would make in that area. The third part is risk management. So breaking down and getting into what would actually happen if one of you two were unfortunately to pass away or go into some type of need, such as disability long-term care. And the third part of that was asset preservation. So I know you guys have said a lot about wanting to take care of the children and leave a legacy behind, if not to the children, to certain charities. We wanted to make sure that that was all taken care of for you. So that's what we had planned for today, and in the plan, wanted to make sure that that was okay with you guys, see if you had anything else that you wanted to cover. Okay, great. So we will go through with that. Thank you for affirming that we are still on the same page. That's something that we care a lot about, because we want to know if anything major changes in your life, so that we can actually adapt the plan for that. But that will take us into the goals section of what you guys have actually told us that you're passionate about. So we had down that some of your most passionate goals that you wanted to achieve was being able to protect assets. The second part is leaving money to others, so what you would be able to do from a charitable sense. And the third part is just protecting the family, making sure that the family is taken care of no matter what. Wanted to make sure that that was still on track and in line with your goals. Great. So going through the plan document will actually walk you through all of this information. But we wanted to dive into the investment allocation side of things. So this is one area of the plan where whenever we went back and started digging into it, we saw some things that were a little concerning. To me, looking at the plan, I know that you had filled out a risk tolerance for us, Jim, the last time you were in. Just saying how risk averse you actually are towards investments and towards your portfolio. And so looking at that, and seeing that you came back with what would be very in line with our capital preservation 2 strategy, which is a more conservative approach where we would be looking to shift to more fixed income on that side of things. Seeing your current portfolio, that was something that was concerning to me, because currently you are invested in a portfolio that is more on the aggressive side of things. So we just wanted to make sure that we got on the right track for that, because what we wouldn't want to see is the market go for a big dip, like we saw in the 07, 08, 09 era, as well as what we even saw on a little bit smaller scale during the end of last year in Q4. We don't want to see you left out to dry whenever the market actually takes a dip, because if it is coming close to your retirement, I know you said that you're looking to retire hopefully in the next 5 years. We want to be able to make sure that we're going to be able to get you there. So in doing that, our recommendation would actually be to just move and have a slight reallocation to a more fixed income portfolio. So currently you're sitting in what's about 90% equities. Whenever we take the cash out of things, you also are holding a large cash position that when we had talked last time, there wasn't really a reason for, other than just not knowing where to put it into the market. So we did want to make that proposal to actually move to more of a 30-70 or even a 60-40 fixed income to equity portfolio, to where we could really dive in and just protect those assets, set it up for income and capital preservation, than what we are currently set up in, just trying to get growth in the market. That will provide a lot more protection to you guys in the long run. The second part of that was the 403B, and you currently have with Florida State. So we would recommend that you continue to contribute to the 403B and the 457 with Texas A&M, just like you're doing now. That's the best way to get those tax advantage assets and be able to get the match from the university as well. And so one thing that we did want to just kind of frame in your mind is the example that the assets that are actually with Texas A&M, because that's your current employer, are completely separate from what you have in what we would call just old assets in an old 403B through Florida State. So because you were separated from Florida State and no longer work with that university, you have the ability to gain back some cost, control, and choice by just rolling that over from your 403B into a traditional IRA in your name. So in doing that, you have the ability where you can just have all of the control of where those assets are going. If they change providers, you don't have to worry about that. From a cost perspective, it's typically going to be a little bit lower for you than the fees that they are charging inside of that vehicle. And then from a choice perspective, we can go out and invest in literally anything that you want to invest in. So it's pretty much a no-brainer for a lot of our clients to make that change and to protect those assets in that way. So one of the strategies that we had for that, we talked for it pretty detailed in the plan, but just wanted to give you a high level of what that looks like. Since we are already taking a more conservative position to the assets in your entire portfolio, we thought for a portion of these assets, we could actually create what they call is like a market hedging strategy, similar to a structured note is the official term if you were to go and look it up, to where we would be able to invest in the market and have a buffer on the downside. So where we could have a buffer of 10%, 20%, or 30% on the downside. There's a lot of different structured notes out there that we could help you navigate. But the one that we had in mind had a buffer of 20% that would protect you if the market was to go down. So if the market goes down 22%, you would only be down 2%. But if it only goes down somewhere between 1 and 20%, you actually wouldn't see any loss in that portfolio. And at the same time, you would still be investing in the market. So any gains that you actually see in that investment option, it would be structured to track an index. And so any gains that you see in that portfolio, you would be able to take and be able to count on those being there for you in retirement. So that was the investment option that we had for you there. Wanted to see if you had any questions there and wanted to make sure that made sense to you guys. Okay, perfect. Moving forward for the sake of time to the 529 accounts. I know that was something that you're very passionate about just in college funding. How can we actually take care of that in an efficient way? So the way that you're going to be able to provide the most into college funding for the children is to be able to set up 529 accounts in Sophia, Jimmy, Ronnie, and Danny's names. And so what this is going to do for you guys is you're going to be able to put in up to $15,000 per year into those accounts to where you can have that earmarked for college planning costs, and the gains will actually not see a tax consequence as long as they're used for college funding and college expenses. And so in doing that, I know that you had mentioned, Jim, that you were passionate about having the ability to fund that up front as a lump sum, and we think that would be a great idea. They actually allow in this type of plan for you to contribute $75,000 as a one-time 5-year contribution into each account. And so especially like for Sophia, that would give you the opportunity to see the most opportunity and gains in the market because of the amount of time that you've actually got there. We only have 2 years until she is looking to start at Baylor. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing from our Aggie backgrounds, but I'm sure she'll turn out great in that. And so we want to make sure that we have a tax advantage vehicle for that, and the 529 is going to be the best way to go. So that pretty much wraps up the investment side of things. So from reallocating your current accounts to a rollover of the 403B to just setting up 529 accounts in each of the child's name. Wanted to see if you had any questions on that before we move into the second section of that. No? Great. So the second thing that we wanted to talk about today was the risk management section. So one thing that we would recommend is you actually have the ability to contribute to a disability plan through Texas A&M, and it's going to be the best that you can actually get and the best offer and deal that you're going to be able to get just because you work for them. So we would highly recommend that. As far as the life insurance side of things, I know this is something you were passionate about. We would be looking to get about $1 million of life insurance on you, Courtney, to where we could just use term insurance, keep it really cheap for a 20-year term. That way if something happens in that time period, then she would be covered and wouldn't be something that we have to worry about. We can use your age as an advantage, and we don't have to worry about doing anything permanent now for you. For Jim, we would look to really just structure that in a way that for your $2 to $3 million need, we would actually be covering that with $1 million of permanent insurance and $1 million to $2 million in term insurance. That's something that we can talk a little bit more in detail about. But on the permanent side, that makes sure that since you are a little bit older, you're locking in that rate so that you have this insurance for the rest of your life. One last piece that I know you all were passionate about was long-term care planning and how to take care of those costs. I know that's something that has deeply affected you guys and having to take care of parents. And so we wanted to make sure that we came up with a plan to be able to take care of that for you. So in doing that, you have the ability to get standalone long-term care. As I walk through in the plan, There's a couple of negatives to that. If you were to never go into a long-term care need, that money would just go to the insurance company. So one idea we had is actually just throwing a long-term care rider onto your life insurance policy. So this would just make it an either or, where if you were to go into a long-term care need and need $250,000 in coverage over your lifetime, that would be used at that time for that coverage, and the other $750 that is left in that policy would pass on to you, Courtney, or the heirs at that time. So that's something that we're really passionate about, is finding a way that we can do this in a cost-effective manner. So wanted to see if you guys had any questions on that part of the plan. Perfect. So now that we have talked about the risk management side of things, walking through the different insurances out there, and we have also walked through the investment portfolio, the last thing that we wanted to walk through was how can we actually preserve assets for you guys, and what's the best way to do that. So the first thing I would recommend just going through your budget, and really just once a year you can take a look at it and say, do I really need this cost? Do I need to be spending this much on pet expenses, for example? And you will find out that you can lower your expenses quite a bit in doing that, and you will be shocked how much that can actually go towards travel and retirement and things that you guys actually care about. So I would recommend doing that. The second thing is I would recommend getting with your attorney and looking to set up a special needs trust for Jimmy. So what this is going to allow and provide is that we can have a way to structure those assets that you guys have on hand to be able to take care of Jimmy for the rest of his life. We don't want to see his way of life or what he's accustomed to be changed just because something happens to one of you guys or you finally do pass away. And the third piece, estate planning, is something that could be an issue for you guys coming up in the future. And so in doing that, I would also talk closely with your attorney about an ILIT, which is just an irrevocable life insurance trust. This would just give you the ability to shield assets from the government in the event that you were to need to shield those assets and in an estate planning situation. So if you get up above that estate tax limit. But going through that, so now that we've covered the asset preservation side of things, we've covered risk management, and we've covered the investment allocation recommendations. Did just want to give you a summary of all of this. So we think you guys are in a really good spot. You've done a lot of great planning to this point to get us to this point today where we can be able to make these recommendations and work for you guys. But we do feel that making these slight changes are necessary and something that you guys should take very seriously. So wanted to see if you had any questions or any thoughts on the plan before we kind of walk through the next steps on that. Great. So as you're reading through the plan, let us know as those questions come up. We want to get those questions answered for you. But the last thing that we did want to cover today, and going through all of that in the executive summary, is just an action plan. So the last page of that plan in front of you today, there's an action plan of how we're actually going to put this in force and how we're actually going to go about the process moving forward. So have put in specific dates for you guys that we're going to work to accomplish a lot of these actions. Honestly, it's going to be a lot of work on us. We have the investment team here that will take care of all of that for you. We may need some signatures down the line, so we'll get that over for you guys. But there will be a few steps for you guys to take care of and take action on as well. So if you guys don't have any questions going for that, I know you've got to run, Jim. Did want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to come in today. I know it's a really busy schedule on y'all's end, but once again, always great to see you. And we're excited to start working through these action items for the next few weeks. So thanks, guys, and have a safe drive back.